presidents sitting on their pale hands.
By 26th of October 2021, 49% of the world's population had received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Unfortunately, only 3% of the people in low-income countries have received at least one dose. It's worse off in Uganda, where we have less than 1% of the population fully vaccinated, while 4.6% of the population have received the first dose of the vaccine as of 26 October 2021. While countries like the USA, France, Israel, Chile, and others have embarked on the booster doses for COVID-19 vaccination, there are immense places in the world where enough vaccines have not reached, including so many countries on the African continent. Scientifically, this does not make sense to have the majority of the world unvaccinated and a few super vaccinated to end the pandemic. This will only lead to more new variants. The World Health Organization has called this unethical and moral. This inequity we are seeing in vaccine distribution is not an accident. It is a symptom of neocolonial policies driven by capitalistic economic models that richer countries have leverage to hold vaccines in the market and leave the poor countries at the mercy of the donations of the leftover vaccines. This is really absurd.
It's the spark that's in your system.
To date, the government of Uganda has not procured any single vaccine, despite the allocation of funds by Parliament of Uganda to do the same. The President has always argued that this is due to lack of vaccines on the global market. Actually, most of the vaccines that we have received in Uganda are donations from richer countries. We thank you very much for the aid. However, this business of donating vaccines, actually that are leftovers from richer countries' stockpiles, most of them with short shelf life, some of them that have been abolished in those countries, should stop yesterday. For me, this is the weakest form of equity and solidarity in these chaotic times of COVID-19. This instead perpetuates a dependency of global South economies on Western richer countries.
We know there have been efforts by the COVAX facility to ensure equitable global access to COVID-19 vaccines. However, its promises on access to vaccine is based on donations and finance support, and the program has also been struggling to meet its goal. The World Bank efforts in vaccine equity indicate that the bank is using grant mechanisms to help the countries finance purchases and loans for the middle-income countries. It is stratified so that the most vulnerable countries don't have to repay for those resources. This is a vicious cycle of grants to credits to loans. Credits do not have any interest rates to prevent debt at this time. This is a revolving credit which returns to richer countries in form of increased profits.
While patents and TRIPS waivers from World Trade Organizations will be a great relief to increase capacity for production of cheaper vaccines. At the beginning of these negotiations, multinational pharmaceutical companies vocally opposed the waiver and disclosure. Forms from the first quarter of 2021 revealed that over 100 lobbyists had been enlisted to oppose the TRIPS waiver. However, at the Global Health Summit, the multinationals promised to share more vaccine doses with the continent. Thanks to the intellectual property holders for rather pledging to share more of their vaccines with the continent than to abide by the campaign to temporarily waive intellectual property. After all, there is even a strong possibility that the G7 group of the world's biggest economies will pledge more funding for vaccination. Of course, the IP waiver campaign is seeking for charity, but not the right for other countries to develop and make their own vaccines to support the continent, free from the worry that they will be sued by patent holders. In the grave, yes, in the grave, COVID-19 victims will return And in systemic enslavement lies the African Union plans to manufacture 60% of Africa's vaccines on the continent by 2040.
The different forms of vaccine access efforts have raised questions about the intentions of high-income countries, which in turn has greatly contributed to the vaccine hesitancy in our local context here in Uganda. Vaccine hesitancy and vaccine inequity are not mutually exclusive, but instead constitutive, as some Ugandan citizens will justify their refusal of Western vaccines due to their paranoia about the Western agenda. The 3Cs model of vaccine hesitancy, that is convenience, confidence, and complacence, according to the World Health Organization, clearly highlights the root cause analysis of vaccine resistance, which, if rigorously examined, should address the current challenges as faced by the vaccination implementing bodies.
It is also absurd that we are also witnessing COVID vaccine nationalism, where people vaccinated, for example, in Uganda with the Indian-made AstraZeneca, are not considered vaccinated, for example, in the UK. Recently, we had our colleagues travel to the UK for further studies and were quarantined despite their fully vaccination status from the Indian-made AstraZeneca.
It's the spark that's in your sister.
The pandemic has challenged us to improve our health systems and prioritize research and development of new drugs and vaccines to mitigate the vaccine inequity, but also increase the vaccine acceptance among the populace. Uganda started on vaccine development process. However, this process has been frustrated and hampered with several difficulties, such as acquiring reagents from the global market. The vaccine inequity is one symptom of broader global health inequalities that have their roots in colonialism and persist today because of neo-colonial forms of power. Vaccine justice starts with moving beyond aid models of vaccine donation, in which poorer countries are gifted vaccine leftovers. It demands rapidly achieving global consensus for intellectual property waivers, democratizing vaccine intellectual property and know-how, and supporting low-income and middle-income countries to build manufacturing capacity for this pandemic as we move forward.
In the shadows of the term "no one is safe until everyone is safe" lies the truth that no one is safe until systems are free.
For the world we want, so we walk, we march.